The obese cat jumped off the little mound and glared reproachfully at the bird. "Why didn't you say I was on a grave? Oh, like now I'm suddenly in charge of telling you where you are?" The cat hissed again and started trying to climb the tree, shouting more insults. Baron chuckled as Haru's anger melted into skepticism that they had already started fighting. But after a century of listening to them bicker, the Lord no longer gave notice to it. King Valorius burst out laughing as the Lord watched Haru shake her head and mutter to herself, walking back inside her home. Baron followed her in on his special window. Stunned that she had picked up the bag her mother usually used to gather wild herbs and start placing things inside it, like all the herbs that had been drying and her mother's special bowl and pounder. She rolled up her straw mat as she looked at the flower he had sent her, perhaps wondering whether or not to break the stem. She settled for taking a last smell of the flower to preserve it in her memory. She looked around the shack, a deep regret in her eyes.
That was when he understood. She was leaving home. Well, he couldn't blame her. With that corrupt landlord, that would shortly be getting an unpleasant streak of bad luck that would last several years, courtesy of the mountain lord. The brunette sighed tiredly as she opened the flap again to see the two messengers going at each other with their claws. Shaking her head again, she walked past them, in order to bow once more before her parents' graves and start down the path. When she was the size of a doll in the distance, Baron couldn't restrain himself from interfering. He made another bucket of ice water appear over the duo and dumped it on both of their heads. Deciding that he liked Haru's way of getting their attention, Valorius started laughing again. Toto immediately fell to the ground since his feathers were soaking, and Muta was howling pitifully. "Stop it now!" Baron hissed. "She's getting away! Go after her!" Both the cat and crow gasped, and looked towards the direction Haru was disappearing in. He quickly used his power to dry the two off, so that they could make pursuit.
Just when Haru thought she was distant enough not to hear the shouts, a new one pierced her ears. "Haru Yoshioka?" She turned in mid-step, a bit surprised that the crow from before was now carrying the fat cat in his claws by the front paws, making a beeline toward her. She stopped, surprised that the crow knew her full name. How did the cat get dry so quickly? The crow set the cat down with surprising care next to her, and landed on her shoulder. She yelped, and took a few steps back. Not being accustomed to having a large bird sit on her, he bowed from his perch. "Please forgive my manners of me and my friend. I am Toto, and the cat's Muta. We're servants of the Lord of the Mountains." Muta grinned evilly at her. "I bet you're sorry that you dumped cold water on me now." She thought for a second. "No, not really. Who you work for doesn't excuse using a grave as a dance floor." Toto used one wing to cover a smirk, struggling not to take the bait. Haru looked at him. "Did you need directions to the landlord's place or something?" Not waiting for an answer, she started lifting her other arm to point in the right direction. Muta started shaking one paw. "Actually, we're here to talk to you, Chickie." She raised an eyebrow at him for the nickname, but didn't protest against it. "And what would the Lord of the Mountains wish from me?" "Your hand in marriage," Muta said without thinking, and then quickly covered his mouth in horror. Haru's eyebrows shot up in disbelief as Toto tried to cover up the fat cat's mistake. "Did you have to say it like that, Mushu Pork?" Before Muta could try a comeback, Haru took a few more steps away and tried to shoo Toto off her arm. There was no way, in heck, that they were speaking the truth. What could she possibly have done in order to catch a fairy's eye, let alone one of the more powerful ones? There had to be a mistake. "You guys are sick, you know that? You must be bored out of your skulls to try a joke like that." "It's not a joke," Toto protested, fighting to keep his place on the shoulder. "Muta wasn't supposed to say it like that, though. We were supposed to ease you softly into the idea." She kept trying to get the crow off her, feeling like she was being trapped. "Besides," Haru continued, fighting off a blush, "I heard the Mountain Lord was engaged to the Lady of the Mists." Muta scoffed. She wishes, but he's not interested in her in the slightest. It's you he's after. Why did he have to make that sound like she was Hunter's quarry? Toto noticed her renewed panic. Here, he gestured to the tube on his back, that she had noticed the first time she saw the crow. He explains everything in this letter. Terror had gripped her heart thinking about another man after her, let alone one that even she couldn't refuse if he commanded her to come to him. Even if she could somehow get away, obedience to the Mountain Lord was ingrained into her genetic makeup, just like it had been for everyone under his care for the countless centuries he's been in charge of them. And he could easily hunt her down if she ran. Oh man, he had to be several centuries older than her, at least. What on earth had she done to gain his personal interest? But she reluctantly opened the tube to get the piece of paper inside. After she got a good hold of it, the crow flew off her shoulder to sit on a nearby fallen tree trunk as she unfolded the letter. She looked at the falling calligraphy a minute before addressing the two again. I'm sorry to say this, but the letter's useless to me. Muta fell off the tree trunk. You've got to be kidding me! Baron spent hours writing and rewriting that thing! Haru shifted uncomfortably, assuming that Baron was the Lord of the Mountains. That doesn't change the fact that I can't read it. Poor farm girls like me usually don't learn things like reading and writing. Such knowledge doesn't help get the chores done faster. The squiggles look pretty, though, she added in an effort to soften the blow, but failing miserably. Muta and Toto stared at her for a while. The fat cat slapped one paw to his face. Aw, cripes, I bet he was aware of that too. We'll have to read it to her. Toto sighed and gestured for her to come closer as he pulled a pair of spectacles from his dark feathers. He placed them on the base of his beak so that the lenses covered his eyes. Stop complaining. You were just saying last week that you didn't think that Baron has a romantic side. Just don't listen if it bothers you so much. Haru held the letter to the crow and followed his directions of rotating the paper so he could read it for her. Just because she was terrified didn't mean that she didn't have the manners to hear the man out. And he was her true master, whether she liked it or not.